Everybody kind of knows that SGA is going to win MVP, but we have some surprise selections and some good arguments for the rest of the awards with today's ballot. We went through my official ballot with Tom Haberstroh. He offered his picks as well, and it was a lot of fun. So let's go through every single NBA award, starting with MVP, ending with Most Improved Player right now. My 9th year with a ballot. And I'd say this is my toughest choice so far because on one hand, you have Jokic having an all-time season, 30 points, 13 boards, 10 assists, absurd levels of efficiency. And the diversity of his offense is remarkable. Low and high posts, off-ball cuts, became one of the NBA's best three-point shooters, pick and pops, drives, handoffs, coming off screens, offensive boards. It's like elite when you look at the synergy data for all of those play types. He's just amazing. Everybody knows that. It's another all-time great season by one of the greatest offensive talents the league has ever seen. But he was not at the same level defensively, in part because of this massive offensive load and responsibility he had. The Nuggets had a bottom 10 defensive rating, and Jokic is in part to blame for that as one of the 5 on defense. And you could say, well, he's dragged them to almost 50 wins. Murray's had a down year. Gordon's missed 30 games. And this is all during a season where they fire their coach. They fire their GM. They haven't been getting along all year. There hasn't been any chemistry. The coach lost the locker room. They'd be in hell without Jokic. And that's a good argument for him as the MVP. However, you need to look at the other side of this here, of course, because there's SGA. By far the best player on by far the best team, 33-5-4 on incredible efficiency for a guard. Of the players historically to average over 32 points, over 5 assists, over 60% true shooting, and plus over 2 steals and blocks combined per game. Michael Jordan did it twice. James Harden did it. Jordan did it 3 times. Harden did it twice. And none of those teams by Jordan or Harden had won over 55 games. And that's in part because of SGA. They have 66 wins right now with a chance to get to 68, despite Chet playing just over 30 games, despite Hartenstein playing under 60 games. The Thunder had a plus 26.7 net rating in minutes without Chet Holmgren, without Isaiah Hartenstein, and without Jalen Williams. So even without their second best player and their 2 bigs, they pushed for nearly 70 wins with SGA. They were dominant without those other guys on the floor, without that, with only SGA out there. They were incredible with him. They were average without him. And that's partially because of his defense. Jokic, the defense has fallen off this year, but for SGA, he wasn't the weak link despite his massive offensive load. He was an excellent defender, a block per game, almost 2 steals per game, aggressiveness, awareness, communicated. He helped set a tone for that team. So I think the argument is incredibly strong for both. I wouldn't knock anybody for picking Jokic, but one player dragged his team to 50 wins despite everything, and one player was the best player on the best team, both having awesome seasons, but my vote goes to SGA.
Me too. I mean, you just laid it out perfectly. The two-way play of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is sealing the award for him in my book. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is one of the best shot blockers in the NBA. He's crazy. 21st in the NBA in blocks. He's got more blocks this season than Giannis Antetokounmpo, Jarrett Allen, and Draymond Green. I'm going to repeat that. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who's a guard, who's the head of the snake offensively for them. He's leading the league in scoring, and he's got more blocks than Giannis, more blocks than Jarrett Allen, who's the 5'4", one of the best defenses in the NBA, and Draymond Green.
How's that possible?
You know why it's
Tom?
possible? Because he's that talented. He's that talented. He's that well coached. Mark Dagnall, the way that he's employed and empowered Shai Gilgeous-Alexander using this 6'6" dude, super strong, super smart, well disciplined. The way they play both ends of the floor, it's kind of a symbiotic relationship between he and the head coach. You look at Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, the consistency is outrageous. He's leading the league in scoring by a mile. But more importantly to me, he's had 72 straight games with at least 20 points. You know how crazy that is? That's more than anybody in the NBA. And it is 4th all time behind Wilt and Oscar. So Wilt has done it twice where he's had 126 games of 20 plus. Wilt Chamberlain also did it again with 92. Oscar had 79 and then tied for fourth all time. As of this recording, he is tied for fourth all time at 72, tied with Kevin Durant and Michael Jordan. 72 straight games with 20 plus. He's top 21 in blocks. He's top 2 in steals. This guy is basically 50, 40, 90. If he wasn't, he has a 38% 3-point shooting. There's an argument to be made for Nikola Jokic offensively as the best player on the planet. And I think he is the best offensive player on the planet. Right behind him, you can say Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, you can say Luka Doncic, but in terms of all-around game, no one checks off more boxes than Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. This is the best defense we've seen in a very long time, and he's a big part of it. You can't say the same for Jokic.
You know, I think that's spot on, Tom. I mean, look, I'm not going to fault anybody for picking SGA. I'm not going to fault anybody for picking Jokic. It's just like he's outstanding. He's unbelievable. The argument for him is strong the way I laid that earlier. But everything you said, everything I said for SGA, it's not just picking the best player on the best team. It's picking a guy that leveled up his play even greater than he was last year when he finished second. And rightfully so. I thought he finished second. I thought it should have been second or third last year. I actually had him third. I had Luka second on my ballot last year. I had SGA third. So, like, he's way better this season than he was last season. Now, behind them on the ballot, I have SGA and Jokic. Let's bring my ballot up on the screen again. We have Giannis and Tatum in the third and fourth spot. I don't think that's necessarily anything people are going to be arguing over. That feels like pretty self-explanatory. The fifth spot, I have LeBron James, and he's my first team All-NBA, fifth on my MVP ballot as well. So LeBron at 5, 25 and 8 for stretches of the season, he's looked like an all-defensive player. I don't think it's a stretch to say that he belongs here on the fifth spot on my ballot. Earlier in the week, I had Danny Parkins from FS1 on my pod, and he also said, yeah, let's go with LeBron at the fifth spot. And I agree with that. What do you think, Tom? Is this fair to put LeBron at fifth?
I would have it between Stephen Curry. I have him in that conversation. I also, Donovan Mitchell, the way that he kind of tailed off at the end of the season and Cleveland hasn't finished super strong. I think he had a chance to assert himself as that number 5 slot, but I understand it's going to be up for grabs, that 5 slot. LeBron has been a really consistent performer, whether it's pre-Luka Doncic, as the guy who was the face of the franchise with JJ Redick taking over. LeBron's been there. And you remember earlier in the season, he had one of his worst 3-point shooting streaks of his entire career. And people were like, oh, he's done. Like, he can't shoot like he used to. His shot's broken. And then he rattled off one of the hottest 3-point shooting stretches of his career. And the fact that he is even in this conversation is crazy. It is crazy. And then you got Steph Curry, who's been all the way, like, offensively one of the best players in the league, and a guy that has so much gravity still at this age, who's able to drop 50, able to drop 60 still in today's NBA. It's absurd. But I can't argue against LeBron James. Defensively, earlier in this season, he wasn't as sharp. But you know what? Everybody at that number 5 slot has a little bit of wart in their game or a little bit of weaknesses that you can, count against them. But LeBron James, man, the way the Lakers have maintained sanity throughout what is an outrageous season and completely buried the whole Bronny James controversy earlier in the season. No one's talking about that anymore. And that's part of the reason is because LeBron James has quieted all the critics and continued to play at an extremely high level. And that consistency counts for something. Number 5, it's 2025 and LeBron James could be the number 5 slot in the MVP race. That's insane.
Tom, and the listeners, I want to get your feedback on my all NBA teams right now. First team is the same as the top 5 for MVP with SGA, Jokic, Giannis, Tatum, and LeBron. Second team, I've got Mobley and Mitchell, 2 Cleveland Cavaliers there alongside Cade Cunningham, Jalen Brunson, and Anthony Edwards. And then on the third team, I've got Stephen Curry, Jaren Jackson, Karl Anthony Towns, Jalen Williams, and Ivica Zubac. Any issues, Tom, with my selections or the teams chosen with my 3 All-NBA teams? Any issues here? Probably Steph. I assume Steph is one of them.
Yeah, Steph would be second team for me over Jalen Brunson. And I do wonder, who are your toughest cuts here? So Ty Halliburton.
Halliburton was a very, very tough cut. He's been outstanding ever since the NBA Cup. I think with Halliburton, I still wish he scored more. I know it might sound silly, but I like there was a stat posted on X the other day where it's like he shoots like 5 times less per game when he just misses his first shot. And I thought that was really indicative of his style, where sometimes he's just too passive as a scorer. I think he needs to be in the playoffs for Indiana to truly be a finals threat. He needs to be, 28, 29 point per game scorer. And I think he has that in him. So I'm not yet there with him as all NBA, but he was very, very close, a very tough cut because he's been part of a solid defense. He's been an outstanding playmaker, tough cut. Harden was a cut. Siakam, I considered him. Alperen Şengün from Houston, he was a really tough cut, probably the toughest of them all. Those are just a handful of the tough cuts from the third team.
I love Zubats, dude. I love Zubats. That is a bold pick to have him third team all NBA, but he deserves it. He might be the best defender this season in the NBA. We'll talk about this later, but the way that he's improved his game, he could win most improved player. I wouldn't knock that. He could be defensive player of the year because now that Victor Wembanyama's out, it kind of opens up to an entirely new race and it's going to be very competitive, but Zubats has been outstanding and underrated and a guy that I think might be at this point the most underrated player in the NBA. His two-way play and the ability to, that Clippers defense has been top 2 basically the entire season. And once they get Kawhi and James Harden, Norm Powell's been in and out of the lineup. The constant is that dude Zubats. So I'm not knocking that. I like that pick, and it also I think is important to acknowledge that the Los Angeles Clippers have been so good this season, and it kind of gives a nod for one of the representatives to be on that team. It's interesting. You have basically 3 centers here in Karl Anthony Towns, Jaren Jackson Jr., and Zubats, and it reminds me that this NBA, it still is vastly important to have a really good 5. And centers still matter at a high level. I can't knock your third team. I probably would have Şengün in there for Zubats, but it's a coin flip for a lot of these guys. And for Tyrese Halliburton, he's been good, but the consistency factor, he's been one of the highest variance players in the NBA. At home, on the road, it was like Jekyll and Hyde for much of this season, and that consistency is probably going to cost him some votes here, and I'm with you. This is going to be a very competitive race, but I got Şengün as the representative for the Houston Rockets in those 3 teams.
Very fair to have Şengün on there. He's been awesome this season, and I'll tell you what, I know this is a regular season award. I look forward to seeing how he performs in the postseason because, I think with the Rockets, they've been great this year. And we'll talk about Coach of the Year later. We'll talk about, if they get any other awards as well. Amen Thompson, Defensive Player of the Year, All D and all that too. But with Şengün specifically, he's borderline All NBA this year. He might end up actually getting it once we see the ballots revealed later in the playoffs. But for Houston specifically, everybody talks about Jalen Green as the key to like the main area of improvement for the Rockets. But to me, it's how does Şengün perform in some of these high leverage games? Are teams trying to attack him? Do they do it successfully? Or does he continue to show that, hey, I'm not a defensive liability anymore? Does his lack of a reliable jumper become an issue for Houston? Because sometimes during the season, we know how their offense can get clunky in endgame situations. So with Şengün, I look forward to seeing how he performs in this playoffs for Houston because regular season, without a question, dude was awesome and he was my toughest cut. We'll do more awards right after this quick break. All right, Tom, let's talk about rookies. Who you got for Rookie of the Year?
Man, Risa Shea's making a chase for it, isn't it? Like that is really impressive what he's done lately in the scoring column. He's been balling out, but I got Steph Castle, Rookie of the Year. This guy has been performing as basically their playmaker down the stretch without Wemby, without De'Aaron Fox, and playing at a really high level. His shooting percentages, you would like to see them improve a little bit more based on his athleticism and based on his decision making. You'd expect to be a little bit higher, but he's been so good down the stretch. As good as Risa Shea has been in the scoring column, I think Steph Castle has been the more complete player consistently from start to finish this season, and Castle's my pick.
I'm right there with you. It's close between Castle and Risa Shea because Risa Shea awesome close to the season. But over the full year, 12.7 points per game. He's made 35.5% of his threes. Closed the year well over 40%, 42.4% from three since January 30th. And you got to feel optimistic that, hopefully he carries this into the future, even though he's been very streaky in the past. It's not just stand still, catch and shoot threes. He's coming off of screens. It's movement off the catch. He looks great. Castle, not as efficient as a scorer, but the difference is less significant than you'd think. Shai, 55.7% true shooting. Castle, 52.1%. And Castle closed the gap, even though he wasn't as efficient from three-point range because of his ability to create chances at the rim. He had triple the amount of unassisted shots at the rim, triple the amount of drawn fouls. Castle didn't shoot as well from three, only 28.3% from three, but he was far better as the creator, as a playmaker. He had 594 pick and rolls this year, 150 isolations. Shai, only 83 pick and rolls, only 13 isolations. Both had huge scoring games. Shai scored over 28 times, but Castle did it 20 times. And that's in part because Castle is a self-created player with a lot of his points. Shai is scoring off of others a lot of the time. And that's no knock on Shai. He's a great cutter. He is a great mover without the ball. He's very smart. He's a good connective passer. Right now, he looks like an elite shooter. But Castle, he had 34 games with at least 5 assists. Shai had 0. And so offensively, to me, Castle's, as you argued, Tom, he just did more. And then defensively, I think both rookies were really good as rookie defenders. But if you look at against the Bucks, it's Shai defending Kuzma, Castle's defending Dame. Against the Warriors, Shai defends Moody, Castle defends Steph. Against the Grizzlies, Shai defends Wells, Castle defends Ja Morant. And that's true for every team. B-Ball Index has this matchup difficulty stat that kind of accounts for, it's in the name, matchup difficulty. How tough is the matchup for the defensive player? It's in the name. And it uses data to pull from like the amount of the opponents are taking and puts them into percentiles. Shai, his matchup difficulty is in the 49th percentile. Castle is in the 97th percentile. So I think that goes to show like the load he carried offensively, Tom, and the amount of tough matchups he handled on defense. And we saw he did a solid job against Steph in that shocking Spurs win over the Warriors this week. Castle, man, my rookie of the year as well. I'm with you.
Yeah, I think Castle wins it. I think Shai gets a little bit of a bump for his late season play. And when you look at Jalen Wells and the fact that he was oftentimes the best wing defender for the Memphis Grizzlies and a guy that was such a rock for them with all of the controversy, with the changes mid-season, he was awesome. And it's really unfortunate that he had that really scary injury there on that play against Charlotte. And that was one of those things where, as a fan, you're heartbroken because no player should have to deal with that when they're going up for a dunk. And Simpson had a really heartfelt apology. I don't think it was a dirty play. It's just something that happens. And I think Mark Williams might have clipped him there, and it wasn't necessarily Simpson just being reckless there. But Jalen Wells, I think, had a very underrated rookie season. And I do think that he's along with Zach Edey, along with Donovan Clingan, along with Buzelis. There were a lot of guys this rookie season that in the second half of the year, you could make the argument that they deserve rookie of the year over Stephon, Castle, and Shai. But I think from start to finish, you look at Castle, I think he's been the better player. And going forward, Kev, are you sometimes the rookie of the year is kind of like a redraft award where it's like he might have gone number one if we did a redraft right now. Are you most bold about his future compared to the rest of the rookie class? Because you have like Zach Edey was, I think, better than a lot of people expected. Donovan Clingan had like the best rebound rate for a rookie of all time. Wasn't able to stay on the floor as much because of the fouling. But there have been some really bright moments from this rookie class that started out as the worst rookie class. I wrote about it for Yahoo, the worst rookie class ever. But there were some nice moments down the stretch, especially for Modest Buzelis, who, man, that guy is super talented.
I actually don't think I'd change my rankings too much. I'm pretty happy with what I had in 24. I had Shepherd 1. I'd stay with that. I had Clingan 2, Castle 3, Buzelis 4, Devin Carter 5. I'd maybe bump Devin Carter down because he's an upperclassman out of Providence, did not have a great year for Sacramento, but he also missed the start of the year with injury, so it wouldn't be a large drop for him. I had Sarr at 6, and I had Edey at 7. So I'm pretty happy with my top 7 rankings. Maybe like I'd move Shai up. I had him too low. I'd move McCain up. I had him at 12. I'm happy having him at 12, but I would move him up more. And, so I think redrafting Reed, we didn't see a lot of Reed Shepherd this year, but every time we did for extended minutes, it felt like it was good, really good, sometimes awesome, including this week. So maybe we'll see it again this weekend if Houston's resting their stars and they have their young guys playing again. But I think I'd stick mostly with what I did for, the 2024 draft originally in a redraft, except for a couple tweaks. Ultimately, though, Castle.
Dude. If Reed played for the Washington Wizards this year, he would have won Rookie of the Year. There's no doubt in my mind. No doubt.
I think he would have as well. Like, Matt, if he got everything Bob Carrington did, he wins Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, I think anytime he got oxygen, anytime he got playing time, if he played for Charlotte, if he played for Washington, if he played for a team that needed a point guard or someone to absorb that kind of offensive scoring and distributing responsibility, like he would win. And because he's on a team, the Houston Rockets, that are trying to win a championship this year, I understand why people would be out on Reed Shepherd and saying, like, look, they got a number 3 pick who barely played this season. We're still on that bandwagon, dude. Like, I am still on Reed Shepherd Island.
Let's pull up my first team all rookie. He is not here. He's not on any of the teams. I have Wells as in 3rd for Rookie of the Year, Edey and Kel'el Ware rounding out the first team. I feel like with Kel'el Ware, he's been excellent this year for the Miami Heat, which has not been a great year for them, but he's been very impressive. And then on the second team, I have Alex Sarr, Donovan Clingan, Missy, Buzelis, and Kyle Filipowski. This is tough, man, because there were a lot of candidates this year. Because games played don't matter, so you could consider Jared McCain, but he got injured so early in the year, I didn't pick him. Bub Carrington, Keyshawn George from Washington, Isaiah Collier from Utah has been really good to close the year. Ron Holland with his defense and just how steady he's been. Jamal Shed, Justin Edwards. Like, there's a lot of guys you could consider for the second team, but this is what I ended up with for the all rookie teams. And any standouts here? Are you mad that I had Klingon on the second team instead of the first team, Tom?
No, I'm not. And Filipowski, by the way, against Klingon, 30, 18, and 5 the other night. Like, Filipowski showed out. Like, that was a monster performance. And yeah, not many people are watching Utah Portland on a Wednesday night overtime game. But dude, Filipowski showed out. It was an incredible performance from him. 30, 18, and 5. Not many rookies are putting up that. And look, when you're talking fighting for the second team slots on a down rookie season, I'm not going to hate it. I'm a guy who watched Filipowski when Wake Forest beat them last year, and then Filipowski had that whole injury when we rushed the floor. I had a little bit of a sour taste on Filipowski and his stock going forward. Just wasn't the biggest fan of that guy. But college stuff aside, Filipowski was fantastic down the stretch here. And again, like, some of that is just playing time, is that he was able to get these touches, able to get these minutes down the stretch for a Utah team that wasn't necessarily trying to play every game to win. But that's what you need sometimes in order to get to these type of accolades.
I think that's fair, Tom. Let's move on to Defensive Player of the Year. I did a lot of research on this one this week, Tom. I'm picking Amen Thompson for Defensive Player of the Year. I'm doing it, man. I'm picking Amen Thompson. This year, I think he was the best defender in basketball. Granted, Victor Wembanyama got injured halfway through. Less than 6 feet on shots, less than 6 feet from the basket. Opponents shoot 9.7% worse when Amen Thompson is defending. Less than 10 feet, 9.5% worse. Greater than 15 feet, they shoot 5.5% worse. And that's because the dude is near the top of the league in block jumpers, altered shots. We've seen what he can do. Blocking SGA, contesting Stephen Curry every foot around on the half court. 94th percentile on matchup difficulty, according to B-Ball Index. He always defends the opponent's best player. He's defending guards, Ja Morant, Donovan Mitchell, SGA, Curry, bigger wings, Anthony Edwards, LeBron James. He's even defended guys like Evan Mobley and Naz Reid, bigs. and he does it at an elite level, all while being an elite help defender. He's not just an on-ball stopper guy. He's jumps the passing lanes. He's an interior shot blocker. He has amazing hands where, like, in transition, sometimes a guy will be rumbling down the court and he swipes the ball, knocks it out of bounds, or just rips it out of their hands entirely. He's a transition stopper as well. He's a great help defender. And I think if you just like isolate Amen in particular games, if you watch that Warriors-Rockets game, Amen was the more impactful defender than Draymond Green. You watch the OKC game, Amen was more impactful than Lou Dort. And I with Evan Mobley, I have him second on my ballot. I think Mobley is a deserving candidate, but I never watch him and feel that he is the NBA's best and most impactful defender. He's great. He's versatile. He's been part of a top 10 defense, but Cleveland slipping defensively is in part why he doesn't win this for me over Amen. But Tom, that's my case for Amen Thompson, first on my ballot. I have Dort third for what it's worth. What do you think?
Yeah, dude. Amen Thompson's my pick too. I didn't think you were going to go there. I have Amen
you got
Thompson.
Amen.
Yep. Last week, I think I had last week. I mentioned that he was my favorite on this program. I said he's my favorite. He checks off more boxes than Draymond, Evan Mobley, and this is a guy who's the only player in the NBA top 20 in both blocks and steals. The versatility you talked about, where he's a point of attack, shut down Steph Curry the other night, and he's been doing that all season. Is that when you got a Ja Morant or a Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Jalen Brunson, whomever it is, he's the guy that they're going to throw at him to completely throw off all their first actions. And that is a thing that you can't say for Evan Mobley or Draymond Green. Draymond Green's greatest attribute in this conversation is that he has a podcast. I'm telling you, dude, he went from 0% chance, like it was 0.8% on Polymarket, 0.8% chance of winning Defensive Player of the Year until he had that comment where he's like, I deserve it 1,000%, have a case for Defensive Player of the Year. And then he became the favorite. Yes, he had a great game against Giannis and the Milwaukee Bucks, and that helped kind of drive that conversation. But the greatest thing that Draymond Green has going for him this year is that he is vocal and he has his podcast, and he started that narrative and started the campaign by himself. And I'm sorry, when you look at the defensive rating of Amen Thompson, it's 107 when he's on the floor. Look at the other defenders on Houston. You can say Dylan Brooks and Tari Eason, but I'm telling you, the Houston Rockets have a top 4 defensive rating this season with Alperen Sengun and Fred VanVleet on the floor for most of them. Who picked Houston as being a top 4 defensive rating team this season? Who picked it? No one did. You know why? Because they didn't see how good Amen Thompson would be as a 22-year-old in his second year in the league, dominating defensively and turning Stephen Curry into just another guy out there. He's been top 20 in both steals and blocks, only player to do that. His on-court defensive rating, 107, meaning the Houston Rockets are holding opponents to 107 points every 100 possessions when he's on the floor. That's better than Draymond's, that's better than Mobley's, and that's better than Jaren Jackson Jr.'s. And I would argue that those other 3 candidates, Jaren Jackson Jr., Draymond, and Mobley, have better defenders around them that can pump up that score, pump down in the case of a defensive rating where lower is better. Amen Thompson, best defensive player this year. And I would go Evan Mobley at number 2, Toumani Camara at number 3, and Dyson Daniels right behind him. I think Toumani Camara, second in the NBA in defensive stops, being a rim protector in ways that Dyson Daniels isn't. I would argue that he's been more impactful. And if you look at the defensive rating of the Portland Trailblazers over the last half of the season, he has been outstanding. We had him on the Big Number podcast. I don't know if you saw that interview, but Dan Devine and I had Toumani Camara on the pod, and it was awesome. It was great to hear him talk about his game and how he prepares as a defender. He's the only guy in the NBA who has defended both SGA for more than 50 possessions and Nikola Jokic for more than 50 possessions. So the versatility and the ability to not just steal the ball and disrupt your first action, but also to be the back line of defense, blocking shots. You watch that Paolo Banchero play and all the charges that he's taken. I think he gets the edge for me at number 3. But hey, I can't argue with Lou Dort there. Can't argue with Dyson Daniels. I just think that Draymond Green, he's been a good defender, not a great one. And by the way, I think this is right. I don't even think he's eligible right now. Draymond Green still has another game that he has to play in order to be eligible for Defensive Player of the Year, which throws me off. I'm like, dude, if he turns his ankle in the first minute of the game on Friday night, all these sports books that have him as the favorite, they're going to look very dumb because he's not even eligible right now.
Yeah, he currently has 66 games played. However, he has 3 games under 20 minutes played. Actually, no. Yes, he is eligible. He's eligible. Okay, so he has 63 games of over 20 minutes played, and he has 2 games between 15 and 20 minutes. So he has reached the threshold. He's reached.
So if you have 15 to 20, you can have one. I thought you can have 2 of them.
Two.
I take that back, Draymond.
He is officially
I'm not as
eligible.
good at podcasting as you are.
He's like, shut your big eye. Shut your third eye, Tom. Put away your numbers.
It is confusing because then there's like you can do like an injury like exception, file for like an injury exception if you fall short. There's weird things, but the point is Amen Thompson.
I'm in favor of the rule. I'm in favor of the rule, Tom, for what it's worth. But like, there's all these little weird qualifiers. It makes it too complicated. Can we just have it easy? 65 games, period. End of story. Like, what is all this stuff about 15 to 20 minutes, this and that? Like, just make it 65 games, period, and that's it. That's all.
Well,
Ty Jerome being eligible for Sixth Man of the Year, but not for Most Improved Player, it just doesn't make any sense to me.
No, it doesn't. And I'll just throw this out there. Another reason why I got Amen Thompson is because he's played 280 more than Draymond Green, and that counts for something, right, Kev?
It does. Yep, it does, for sure. And that played into my decision with first team All-NBA. I have Amen Thompson, Evan Mobley, Lou Dort. I also have Jalen Williams, and I have Dyson Daniels in the first team. So going to the second team, I do have your guy, Tom. I've got Toumani Camara on my second team, all defense, alongside Draymond Green, Jaren Jackson Jr., Ivica Zubac, and OG Anunoby. But Toumani Camara, the Blazers sent this Toumani Camara Defensive Player of the Year. Like, a lot of the teams send stuff, and Toumani Camara, they sent this. I'm going to give one away to a Blazers fan because within here for this Defensive Player of the Year. Goodie
While you do that, I will explain. There's a box, and the reason why it's a box is because Toumani Camara, that's his gesture when he puts when he stops a guy defensively, he puts his hand gesture, he does the box out there because he's putting the other scorer in a box. He's a guy that when you look at his defensive stops, he's combined steals, blocks recovered, his offensive fouls drawn. He is second in the NBA behind Dyson Daniels, but you have to put in his number 033 in order to open up that box. And what do you got in there? Show the people what you got.
You make waffles. You can make a Toumani Camara waffle. So if you're a Blazers fan who wants to make Toumani Camara edition box waffles, just respond to the post for this podcast on X. Just say 033 in response, and I'll randomly select the winner before ballots close on, I think that'll be Monday. I'll select a winner at random to receive Toumani Camara, Defensive Player of the Year, NBA award voting recruitment, trying to sway me. They didn't sway me for second team, though. I already had him second team because he's been awesome, Tom, as you outlined earlier. Kamara's been absolutely unfreaking believable this year for the Blazers. And I feel it. And doesn't it feel like him overall as a player, that Camara, we already know what he is defensively, but offensively, like, there's another level for him that he can reach over time with just how versatile he is and the number of different things he can do. I think this guy's got a chance to be like a really like top 40, top 50 player in the NBA once he's at his peak. So yeah, I'm excited about Camara. I want to talk a little bit about Draymond being on second team because I think some people are going to vote him to win. And I would say Draymond has been defensive player of the year caliber starting February 8th. The last 29 games of the season, he's been unbelievable. Opponents are shooting 10.3% worse on 2-pointers when Draymond is nearby since February 8th. But prior to that, they were only 5% worse, which is still good, but it's not Defensive Player of the Year level. It was barely even all defensive level in the middle of the season when the Warriors traded for Jimmy Butler and decided, hey, let's start trying. Steph got better then. Draymond got better then. But ultimately, this is a full season award. It is not a lifetime achievement award either. It's just not. And so Draymond, he deserves second team All-NBA in my opinion, but I don't have him in the top 3 for Defensive Player of the Year because it's not a full season award. And, if he had played the way he did in the first half of the year, the remainder of the season, he may not even have been on the second team. It might have been a guy like Jason Tatum or Jaden McDaniels or Gobert or Caruso as a third OKC guy. It might have been Dylan Brooks or Derek White. Like a lot of these guys would have been in consideration. But for Draymond, I thought he had an amazing second half of the year. It's one of the reasons why the Warriors feel real, but you got to count in the first half of the year. You can't forget October, November, December, January, just because a guy's been awesome recently. You think that's fair, Tom? Like, I think with all these awards to kind of have that mindset, you can't just weigh the second half of the year. It feels like recency bias to me.
Yeah, and let's just call it out for what it is. This was Victor Wembanyama's award. And I would venture to guess that if there was no 65 game rule, I think you might see people in a sympathetic way be like, dude, that guy was the best defender of the year by far while he was on the floor. And considering that a lot of these guys are barely getting to 65 games in the first place, you might see people be like, you know what? Because of the huge margin and the substantial gap between Victor Wembanyama and the rest of the league defensively, and you see what the San Antonio Spurs have done defensively since he's been out, that you might see people vote for Victor Wembanyama. So in many ways, I feel like this is kind of the consolation award. And I know Draymond Green has deserved to get more than one, but when you look at the full season, like you said, the full of the season. This is not the best since Wemby went down. This is not the best since the Jimmy Butler trade. This is not the best since the last 10 years. This is about 82 games, who was the best defender, and Amen Thompson, in my book, has been the best defender. And I would venture to say if there was no 65-game rule, Victor Wembanyama might have won this whole thing.
I'm with you there, Tom. And, on the note of Draymond deserving more, maybe, like he's a generational defender. But like it's a regular season award and he's partially a generational defender because of what he does in the playoffs. And that's why I think there should be playoff awards, not just finals MVP, like the defensive player of the playoffs. Like Draymond Green might have 6 of those, you know? Like to me, that's something that is missed in the postseason. They gave out awards for the best defender of the full playoffs, the best scorer, the best offensive player of the full playoffs, and the finals MVP. All of these types of things, I would really love to see the NBA install. If you're going to have a clutch player of the award, you can't have that for the playoffs. I mean, come on. Let me
ask you this, Kev. Let me ask you this: do you think Draymond would trade his rings for Rudy Gobert's 4 Defensive Player of the Years? No, he's not. Not a chance. You know,
and I think Rudy would trade all of them for 1 ring. All of them.
Right. And in Mad Men, when Don Draper is talking to Elizabeth Moss and he's like screaming at her.
I never watched the show.
Okay. I'll just say
it's on my list for someday.
She wants more recognition. She wants more praise. And Don Draper screams at her and says, that's what the money's for. And in the same way, for Rudy Gobert and all his Defensive Player of the Year awards and Draymond feeling like he deserves more, that's what the rings are for. That's what the banners are for. Like, you can't have everything. And if you are going to trade, if you want more Defensive Player of the Year awards in the regular season, okay. But I'm just saying, Draymond Green, you've got all the rings. You've got all that notoriety about your defensive play in the 16 wins of the postseason. That's fine. That's what you play for championships for. And Rudy Gobert would trade all of those for just 1 ring, like you said. And so I think Draymond's right. He might deserve more Defensive Player of the Year awards based on the entirety of the season, if you include postseason. But that's not what the rule is. That's not what the award is. And I feel like that's what the rings are for Draymond. You can sleep at night with those rings. It might not be super comfortable, but I would imagine you sleep better at night because of those rings than if you didn't have any of those.
Spot on, Tom. Let's take one last quick break, and then we're going to talk about the remainder of the awards. All right, Tom, 6th man of the year. I got number 3 on my ballot here, Ty Jerome from Cleveland. Number 2, Malik Beasley, and then Payton Pritchard winning sixth man of the year for the Boston Celtics. Pritchard has been outstanding this year. I mean, I think Beasley is deserving. He's the better three-point shooter, the better high-volume shooter, but Payton Pritchard is outstanding in his own way as well. Shot 40.6% from three on 7.8 attempts per game. Beasley took a couple more per game, 9.3 per game, 41.2%. But Pritchard did way more as a playmaker, a better rebounder, better defender, better creator, self-created more of those shot opportunities, energizer off the Celtics bench, almost 30 points per game. Close between them. Beasley very deserving, but I gave Pritchard the nod here for this award.
I think the more that you start, the less I'm going to consider you for the sixth man of the year. Malik Beasley had 18 starts to pump up a little bit of his stats and kind of more of a starter than Payton Pritchard, who only started 2 games this season. I'm dabbling with the take that if you start any games, you're ineligible for the sixth man of the year.
It is kind of games.
It is kind of weird that we're giving an award for the best player who's not good enough to start games for you. It is kind of weird. It is strange that we have this award in the first place, and I get it. They want awards for not just the top players. We want guys to get recognized in the middle of the league.
Why not reward this? Six men are important. Manu Ginobili, Kevin McHale. There's been some great six men in NBA history, Hall of Famers. Sometimes you don't have to be a middling player. You can be a great player who comes off the bench. I think the award comes from a good place for that reason.
It does. So 0 starts. That's
zero starts.
That's my take, that you cannot be starting. I know there's a limit to how many games you can start, but for Malik Beasley,
that's what it is, which is a lot. Half is a lot.
It's a lot, dude. And Payton Pritchard, he's my pick too. Ty Jerome, Malik Beasley in the conversation as well. DeAndre Hunter also deserves recognition. And I think part of the reason why they pulled him from the starting lineup this year was maybe Hunter wanted the sixth man of the year award, and maybe they felt like we want to make sure that he is eligible. But that is Payton Pritchard's award. Open and shut case. And he, for the majority of the season, didn't start any games. And then, of course, he starts against the Portland Trail Blazers, and he dropped a 40-piece next to Derek White. So he didn't quite make the Haberstroh rule of 0 games started for six man. But if we're going to give a six man of the year award, you have to be six man for the entire year.
So, okay, let's talk about that for a minute. I'm very curious what the listeners think of this take, because I think there's something there. Currently, the NBA rule is you have to come off the bench for over half of your games. To me, that threshold is too high. Beasley, I think, is closer to where the borderline should be. He started 18 of 80 games. So that is 22.5% of his games played as a starter. If you set the threshold to 25% or 20%, to me, that feels a bit more realistic, Tom. It slices it in half. You want 0 games? You want 0% started? The NBA says less than 50. So how about 20 or 25?
Why don't we do a best part-time starter award? Because that's what Malik Beasley would be. Let's do it. Why not? If we're good for a full-time bench scorer, like, why don't we just do a part-time starter award? No, we wouldn't do that, but that's Malik Beasley. He started 18 games this year. I don't know why this is the hill that I want to die on, but Payton Pritchard is the most pure bench player in the NBA, most pure reserve, most pure sixth man of the year, because he's only started 2 games. So hats off to Malik Beasley. Great shooter, amazing player off the bench for the majority of the season. But if you're starting 18 games, I'm sorry, you're off my ballot.
Yeah. I actually thought Pritchard was a pretty easy overall choice. Like, Beasley's deserving, but Pritchard, everything he does for Boston, dude's awesome. Let's move on to Coach of the Year. I got Kenny Atkinson from the Cleveland Cavaliers winning this one. No big surprise considering their massive improvement this season. To me, some of the tougher choices were the second and third slot, because this year there's a lot of coaches you can make arguments for. Mark Daigneault from OKC, JB Bickerstaff with the Pistons improvement. Rick Carlisle, I feel like, has been way overlooked in this for the Pacers. You could say JJ Redick. Ty Lue and Ime Udoka ended up getting my second and third slots for Coach of the Year, with Kenny Atkinson winning it. Ty Lue Kawhi Leonard plays less than half the season. Powell misses a ton of time. Roster gets shuffled mid-year with a trade for Bogey. They have the number 3 defensive rating. He helped them stay afloat offensively without Kawhi Leonard. And ever since they got Kawhi back, they have been absolutely stellar with Kawhi on the floor. I think he is deserving a second. And then with Udoka, they had one little blip, a 6-game losing streak in the middle of January to February. They're 32-14 before that, 20-8 since. I thought he helped this team develop their identity. You mentioned how they're number 3 in defensive rating for the full season, Tom. Udoka is part of the reason why, with the scheme he installed, but also the mentality he has on the floor and the tone he sets as a coach for his team. And everybody falls in line with that. And Udoka, to me, is the 3rd slot ahead of some of those other guys. I mean, I think Pistons fans are going to be pissed at me, especially after having Beasley 2nd. But I couldn't go with JB because the Pistons were 7-18 this year against teams with a top 10 net rating. 7-18 against teams with a top 10 net rating. They weren't great against the best teams in the league. They really beat up on the weaker teams in the East, some of the middling teams. They were very good. They deserve all their praise. But for top 3 coach of the year with, I think, a loaded year, I just gave the edge to Udoka as the 2 seed. I gave the edge to Lou as a seed in the West, and Kenny Atkinson for overhauling that Cleveland Cavaliers team. Is that fair, Tom?
I have JB at number 2 behind Kenny Atkinson. I have Dagnall at number 3. So you mentioned it. It's going to be really tough to sort out 2 through 8 on this ballot. If you were going to do a top 8 coach of the year candidates, you could probably fill any of those 8 in any order and you could make a case for it, right? Like the thing about JB Bickerstaff, it's so funny, is that Kenny Atkinson might win the award because of how disappointing the Cavs were last year under JB Bickerstaff. So it's this weird dynamic where if you're voting Kenny Atkinson, you're almost saying that JB Bickerstaff did such a poor job last year with this talent, and Kenny has done such a great job unlocking Evan Mobley, getting Ty Jerome to be 6th Man of the Year candidate, getting Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland playing like you're not worried about them taking turns, and then Jared Allen, of course, being as dynamic as a playmaker, not just a rim protector and finisher. It's been an awesome team to watch. I think it's harder. The marginal value of a win is so much greater at the 50-60 rather than the 20-30 or 20-40. I think that it's so much harder to be a team that is a plus 10 net rating in the NBA, one of the best net ratings we've ever seen in the NBA, the Cleveland Cavaliers this season. That's way harder to do on a nightly to night basis than, say, moving from one of the basement dwellers to a 45-win team. And look, this is a bad argument to make that JB Bickerstaff doesn't deserve Coach of the Year after what they did to the New York Knicks on Thursday night. But I would say this is a full season award, and Kenny Atkinson, with the expectations coming into this year and where they are now, no one has moved the needle in the title conversation more than Kenny Atkinson. I did not have them as a title contender, period, coming into this year. And they are in that top tier and have been there for months. And KOC, Mark Dagnall, it is insane that he's going to I don't think he's going to finish in the top 3 this year. I don't think he's going to. And I think that's insane considering this team has the best point differential in NBA history.
Yeah. And they've dealt with absences in the year too. No Chet for a portion, no Hartenstein to begin the year. It's like they've had absences as well. So, I mean, it's pretty remarkable that they've been able to be this amazing defensively and this amazing offensively. It's not just SGA, it's Dagnall as well with that. Like it feels like anytime Ousmane Dieng is on the court, he's playing well. I mean, like from a player development perspective as well.
The other Jalen Williams has triple doubles. Jalen Williams. Like this team is so well coached, man. I can't wait to see what they do in the postseason, dude.
Me too. So I got Pistons fans really mad at me right now for JB Bickerstaff not in my top 3 in Coach of the Year. Malik Beasley at number 2 for 6th Man of the Year. Most improved. Everybody's talking about Cade Cunningham. Who do you have for most improved, Tom?
Oh, I'm curious. I'm wondering if you're going to do this. You're not going to give JB Bickerstaff Coach of the Year top 3. You're not going to go Malik Beasley. Are you going to go 3 for 3, the hat trick, by basically being public enemy number 1 in Detroit and not give it to Cade Cunningham? Because I got Dyson Daniels as my most improved. If it's not Ty Jerome. Now, you said it earlier. Ty Jerome not being eligible for most improved when he was basically out of the league last year, injured, and also not playing, deserving of being like a rotation player, and then being arguably a top 4 player on a Cavs team that's winning about as high as we could have expected for the Cleveland Cavaliers, hitting the 100th percentile in expectation this year. That Ty Jerome is not eligible for most improved player is so asinine to me. It makes no sense. This guy has been awesome. But if he does not qualify and meet the criteria because of the weird, convoluted way that we do the end of year awards, I'll give it to Dyson Daniels, who, again, like the improvement from not really a rotation guy to being possibly the defensive player of the year is a huge change. And I want to give Dyson Daniels the credit here. So he's my pick for most improved if it's not going to Ty Jerome.
Yeah, I mean, so Dyson Daniels is deserving for sure. I had him second on my ballot. I had Christian Brown from the Denver Nuggets third on my ballot. I feel like he's been way overlooked in this whole discussion with his massive improvement offensively, huge uptick in volume and an improvement in efficiency as well. But I have Cade Cunningham winning the award. I got Cade winning the award. I got Cade winning most improved, and I know a lot of people are like, oh, the number 1 pick shouldn't be eligible. They're supposed to be really good. Well, last time we saw Cade healthy, it was like, he's all right. He's good. He's solid, but he's not number 1 pick expectations. He's a solid player. He's maybe the 80th best guy in the NBA, the 100th best guy in the NBA, and he goes to an all-NBA level. You talk about the leap it takes to go from 40 wins to 60 wins versus 20 wins to 30 wins or 40 wins. Cade went from, is this guy a bust? To, oh, wait a minute, he's an all-NBA talent. To me, I don't care where the guy was drafted. I care what they were last time we saw them to what they are today. And Cade Cunningham's improvement as a playmaker, as a scorer, as a shooter, consistency as a defender. He took a massive leap that's hard to make from okay, solid, high volume player to all NBA guy who some people might have on 5th on their MVP ballots and should be on most all NBA ballots. To me, that's the biggest leap of anybody in this year's league, despite Dyson Daniels, despite Christian Brown, despite a fair amount of guys, Zubac, Austin Reeves, your guy, Denny Avdia, a lot of candidates, Ty Jerome, who was not eligible, unfortunately. I've got Cade number 1 because I don't factor in where the guy was drafted necessarily, Tom. To me, it's about year-to-year improvement.
I can't get behind this. I can't.
You look really disappointed in me.
I am, dude. I thought
you want me to get you want me to get knocks on the door and phone calls from Detroit. That's what you want. You were hoping for it, but look, it's true, man. I voted for guys like this in the past before. To me, it's not just an award for borderline role player to really good role player.
Yeah, last year, Cade Cunningham, 22.7 points per game, 7.5 assists per game. He shot 45% from the floor, 36% from three-point land, and 87% from the line. You're telling me that improvement from 23, 8, and 4 to what he is this season is more impressive to you than what Dyson Daniels has done, or that Christian Brown has done, or that Ty Jerome has done? It's Tom, like the guy was really good last year. He was really good this year.
It's not just a numbers thing, though. It's just not. To me, that's part of it. It's not just a numbers thing. Dyson Daniels was a great defender for the Pelicans as well. He was an awesome defender for the Pelicans. Dyson Daniels, the argument for me is like, oh, wait, how much he improved offensively?
Offensively, too.
Offensively, yeah. Daniels has improved. But Cade Cunningham, the volume, the increase in minutes, the increase in responsibility, the improvement as a playmaker, to me, Cade took a big leap from solid, the solid number 3 guy or number 4 guy on a title team to a potential 1 or 2 on a championship team. More likely a number 2 than a number 1 for what it's worth.
Kev? All right, then say it here. The reason why you have Cade Cunningham as most improved player of the year in 2025 is because you thought he was a massive bust last year.
Yeah. I thought he looked like a bust. I thought he looked like an okay, solid player, but maybe somebody the Pistons should consider trading. I worried about what he was for that team. I worried that defensively he was too inconsistent. I worried that his efficiency as a perimeter scorer was never going to reach the level that it needed to. But for Cade this year, that he answered a lot of my concerns, and he still has more ways to improve as well over the course of time. That's what's, I think, promising for the Pistons, that Cade has more improvable areas as he continues to develop. But this improvement from year 3 to year 4, to me, was most improved pick worthy. Now, It's different perspectives. Most improved is always gets into these types of debates. It's always like this. Remember when Ja Morant won it? And I think that year I might have voted Desmond Bane, if I remember correctly. I may be misremembering. Might have been different years. But like Ja, number 2 pick, it was the same thing then. Well, should he really be a candidate for this? It's always like role player versus top pick for this debate. And maybe the NBA needs to make a rule. You have the 65-game rule. You have this rule for half games for 6-man. Maybe you can't be a top 5 pick or a top 3 pick and be eligible for most improved player. Maybe the NBA needs a rule for this as well.
I don't know what the rule change would be, but I appreciate you standing on your take, because I think for people who are arguing for Cade Cunningham to be the number 1 guy in the most improved race, you are admitting that you thought he was a massive bust, because there's no other argument. There's no other argument that a number 1 overall deserves most improved player of the year.
Not bust at like the Markelle Fultz type of level, but bust to number 1 pick expectations. This was my same thing I said earlier in the year with Shai. He might be a bust if the 3-pointer actually isn't going to come along. Like, he needs to be able to shoot the 3. Well, he's shooting the 3, and he looks like a really good role player for 10 plus years, and maybe more than that, considering his range of skills. With Cade last year, it was like, well, yeah, he can score inefficiently, high volume, good stats, bad team player. I'm not so sure he's actually that great. And I think you look at player rankings, nobody would really have him in the top 70 or top 80. He was a borderline top 100 guy for the Pistons through the first 3 years of his career. But now at this point, he's an all-NBA guy, like for sure all-NBA guy, as part of a really good Pistons defense, part of the reason why they had the big improvement. That's why I voted Cade.
Yeah, I feel like
maybe I was too low on him before. Maybe that's what you're saying, right?
Well, no, I'm just saying that implicitly what you're arguing, or anyone who picks Cade Cunningham here, is that he was not nearly as good as you thought he was, because he's not an MVP candidate. Like, you're not like SGA, Jokic, or Cade Cunningham, because in my book, that's the leap you would have to make. For Cade Cunningham, who averaged 23 and 8 last year, and his 3-point percentage has not improved, his field goal percentages have improved a little bit, his all-in-one metrics have improved a little bit. I'm not saying he has not improved, but what I'm arguing is, considering how good he was last year, in order for me to put him atop this race, it would be, is he an MVP this year? Is he the best player in the league this year? And that jump, I think, would be requisite for me to be number 1 overall in this race. But to me, Dyson Daniels' his 2-way play, the fact that he is leading the league by far in the steals column, is to me the most improved player if we're not doing Ty Jerome. Now, I don't think there should be an ideological rule change where it's like guys can't win it in their second year, or guys can't win it in their third year, or guys can't win it if they're the number 1 overall pick. I do think that voters will incorporate all of that already. In the same way, I don't think we need a 65-game rule, because I think voters already implicitly are measuring players against how many games played. And you see it in the numbers. The star players this year are not playing as much as they did last year, but there is some evidence that the 65-game rule is working, because 2 seasons ago, before the rule was implemented, the star player participation was lower than it was over the last 2 years. And I would say it has worked on that level, that you saw teams shut down a lot of these guys in the second half of the year. And especially the play-in tournament has done a lot to improve player participation. But I would still say that I can't get behind Cade Cunningham, because what you're saying is, and you've already stood on it, is that he was a disappointment up until this year, and a number one pick who's averaging 23 points a game already. To get this award, to me, the bar has to be higher.
Very fair. And I think you're going to have a lot of people making that argument. And I look forward to seeing who actually ends up winning this, because there's a lot of people who are going to share your perspective. There's a lot of people who are going to say his improvement as a volume shooter off the catch, the fact he began extending his range to 3 off the dribble, he improved at the rim, he improved as a defender. There will be people who say, well, he took enough of a leap to all NBA. There will be that argument. There will be people who say number one picks should not be considered, period, end of story. But to me, I think, JB rightfully deserves a ton of the credit for the Pistons' improvement this year. Malik Beasley deserves a lot of the credit for the Pistons' improvement. Tobias Harris and these veteran additions, Beasley, all this, right? They changed the team, but the young guys, those core pieces as well. Jalen Duren got better in the second half of the year. And Cade Cunningham, if you're ranking the reasons the Pistons got better, Cade Cunningham is number one on the list. Why the Pistons became a top 6 seed in the Eastern Conference. He's number one on the list, in my opinion.
I think Trajan Langdon in the front office deserves some credit too. Malik Beasley and Tobias Harris have been awesome in spreading the floor and surrounding him with shooters. And Jalen Duren and starting at the 5, they were playing at the 5 and not having double big lineups a lot this season, which is what Monty Williams did, where it was like they were playing 90s basketball, like caveman basketball with 2 like throwback centers on the floor at all times next to Cade Cunningham. Didn't work. And what JB Bickerstaff and the front office did to space the floor with Malik Beasley and Tobias Harris, I think opened up the floodgates for Cade Cunningham. And I think he's been improved, but I think the system has improved just as much as Cade Cunningham. And to me, the improvement is more about the coaching and the personnel than it is about Cade Cunningham. And that might make me an enemy in Detroit, but I'm saying everybody deserves credit here.
Both of us.
Yeah.
We'll both be enemies of Detroit. I look forward to seeing how that season closes out for them. The Pistons and Bucks play twice to close the year. There's still, if the Pistons win both of those games, they'll be the 5 seed instead of the 6 seed. Milwaukee is on a little bit of a winning streak here, 6 in a row. Good vibes in Milwaukee right now, but we'll see. Who knows? Maybe Detroit rattles off 2 in a row and steals the 5 seed from the Bucks. Tom, this is fun, man. This is fun. We had some surprising agreements, some good disagreements. I'm happy with both of our ballots. I'm very happy.
For people, a little peek behind the curtain, you would not share me your ballot. I was getting prepped for this pod, and you were like, nah, nope. I'm putting Tom on the blocked list. You blocked me from the document. And you know what? I think that's for better content. You're a great host, but also a better producer. Good job by you.
Yeah. I saw on the doc last night, I just blocked Tom Haberstroh's email. Did you think about? All right, I'm going to ask you honestly. I want your honest, like, fully transparent. Did your Cade Cunningham vote have anything to do with your Coach of the Year award vote or your 6th Man of the Year award? In the sense that I'm crediting Cade more than JB Bickerstaff, yes, because
yeah,
I don't have JB in my top 3, and I think a lot of people are going to have him in their top 3. I just favored some of the other coaches, and JB deserves a lot of the credit. So does the front office, as you said. But in my assessment of the team, I think Cade deserves the most credit for his improvement. But, there'll be a lot of disagreement there with most improved. I can't wait to see how this vote shakes out. I think we know some of the results. We know in all likelihood, because of the spoiler ballots that Bontemps does with the straw poll, big spoilers, that SGA probably wins MVP. But other than that, this could be really contested. Defensive Player of the Year will be contested. I think Rookie of the Year will be Castle, and we'll see about Risache, though. But other than that, I don't know. Like, there could be a lot of surprises, Tom. I can't wait, man.
I submitted yesterday for Yahoo. I submitted what I think will happen in the ballot. So I think I'm going to remember this correctly. I think my prediction is Shai's going to win MVP. My prediction is that Draymond's going to win Defensive Player of the Year. My prediction is going to be that 6th Man of the Year goes to Pritchard. Coach of the Year goes to Atkinson. Most improved is going to go to Dyson Daniels. And what was the other one I might be missing here? I think I got them all there. Clutch player of the year, Jalen Brunson. I think Jalen Brunson.
I think that's
so. That's my prediction of how it will go. But as you saw on the ballot in the past hour of this pod, I have some controversial opinions on this, but I do think that the one that I'm most looking forward to seeing and how it all shakes out is defensive player of the year, because that one, man, that is juicy. And I think Evan Mobley and Dyson Daniels, the biggest reason and Amen Thompson, the biggest reason why they don't have more of a campaign going is because they don't have a platform like Draymond Green on his podcast. That's my hot take.
Tom, thank you for joining me today, man. Appreciate it.
You got it, Kev.
And a big thank you to Mike, Emmy, and everybody else on that document that Tom was not on for producing today's episode. Thank you all very much. Thank you for listening as well. We'll be back again next week. We have 3 shows. We're doing a Monday show, a Wednesday show, and a Friday show because it's play-in week. It's playoff preview week. So big week ahead. Be sure to subscribe on the audio feeds if you have not done that already. And also keep tabs on Yahoo's YouTube page as well. Thanks for listening. Have a good weekend.